With Americans playing at some of the top clubs in the world, the future is bright for the red, white, and blue. But I know already people are wondering, who is the next generation? Who are the next Christian Pulisic's and Weston McKennies out there? Who's coming behind them? So today, we are taking a look at the top 10 teenagers in the U.S. soccer system at this moment. And I know there's going to be some controversial ones, especially number 10, so I look forward to hearing what you say about that. Now, one caveat, I am saying the top 10 teenagers that have played at least some professional soccer or have played for the national team. There are some guys that are playing at youth teams right now that are very highly acclaimed, but it's hard to say because we haven't seen them play against professionals. So let's get into it. The top 10 American teenagers right now on this episode of the Yank Report. What's up, guys? My name is Sam. Welcome to the Yank Report, the show where we talk about the U.S. men's national team. And if you're into that kind of thing, please hit that subscribe button, hang out with us more. And if you like this kind of video, please hit that like button. It helps spread the video far and wide, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you to everybody that hits the like button. So coming in at number 1, and I think this was the easiest name to pick on the list, it is the American Dream, Giovani Reyna. Gio is soccer royalty. He is the son of acclaimed U.S. men's national team midfielder Claudio Reyna, as well as Danielle Egan, another professional soccer player. Gio made his professional debut for Borussia Dortmund at 17 years old. At the time, he was widely regarded as a can't-miss prospect in the U.S. men's national team system, and up to this point, he has come through with that hype. Widely regarded as one of the best teenagers in the world, Gio Reyna is a major contributor for Borussia Dortmund, who, although is having a down season this year, is a Champions League regular. Gio has already had some golazos in his young career. Although he hasn't had too many opportunities to play for the national team, he is sure to be a U.S. men's national team star for years to come. Coming in at number 2, and this was kind of a tough one because I'm going to give it to Yunus Musah. Now, Musah, of course, has not declared for a national team yet, and he may not represent the U.S. internationally. Yunus is a quadruple international. He could be representing England, but as of right now, the last team he's represented was the USA, so I will put him on this list right now. Musah came out of the Arsenal system as a highly regarded prospect within English international youth ranks. He made a move to Valencia so that he could get some playing time immediately, and that paid off. Yunus became a contributor at Valencia at 17 years old. Yunus is regarded for his energy, his ball control, his ability to get up and down the field. He's an incredible player and a highly regarded prospect. And although it's not certain which national team he's going to represent, if he does choose to represent the United States, he will likely be an integral part of that team for the next decade or so. Coming in at number 3 is Schalke striker Matthew Hoppe. Matthew Hoppe exploded onto the scene this year, scoring a hat trick in the Bundesliga, and then followed that up with consecutive goals in consecutive games. Hoppe's goal-scoring contributions have fallen off a bit since then, and Schalke look destined to be relegated, but at 19 years old, Hoppe is still a very young striker prospect that has scored some goals in the Bundesliga, which is very impressive, and there are not too many teenage strikers that are scoring goals in top 5 leagues in the world right now. Coming in at number 4 is Brazilian-American midfielder Johnny "Soccer" Cardoso. Johnny is the 19-year-old international midfielder who has 2 caps so far for the U.S. men's national team. Now, what Johnny's position is a little controversial right now in U.S. men's national team circles. He was thought to be a shoo-in for the defensive midfielder position, but since we've heard that he might be a box-to-box midfielder, we don't really know where he's going to end up. It seems like Greg Berhalter pictures him as a defensive midfielder, but either way, at 19 years old, Johnny Cardoso seems poised to have a big contribution to the 2022 World Cup cycle, whether he makes the team or not, whether he's playing defensive midfielder or box-to-box. Either way, what he's done so far in the Brazilian League and what he's shown whenever he's a part of U.S. men's national team camps indicates that Greg Berhalter thinks that this guy has something to contribute to this squad. At number 5 is a player that has stolen a ton of headlines over the last few months because he was part of one of the biggest transfer sagas in U.S. men's national team history, and that is 19-year-old Roma right back Bryan Reynolds. Bryan Reynolds really exploded onto the scene for U.S. men's national team fans whenever it came out that he was the target for some big European clubs in a transfer saga that seemed to drag out for months and months and months during the winter window. Roma eventually won the Bryan Reynolds sweepstakes, and although he has yet to make a senior team debut with Roma, he has appeared on the bench for the Italian giant. At FC Dallas, we saw Bryan Reynolds' unbelievable athleticism and his incredible crossing ability. He's a player that, if he can start getting minutes for Roma, can rise up the ranks in the U.S. men's national team depth chart very quickly. At number 6, we have 19-year-old Wolfsburg winger Ulises Yanez. Now, Yanez really broke onto the scene whenever he made an appearance in the Under-20 World Cup, and he showed himself to be, even though I believe he was 16 or 17 years old at the time, he showed that he could compete with the big boys and that he was willing to take players on and make things happen on the field. Although he hasn't had the greatest club career since then, he's kind of bounced around. He's owned by Wolfsburg, but he just got loaned out to Heerenveen, and he has been making appearances there. We haven't really seen it at the club level. When he's been called into the national team, he's been a dynamic player, an exciting player, a player that makes things happen. If he's able to do that, and he has a lot of time, he's 19 years old, he's a player that could be one for the future for the U.S. men's national team for sure. Speaking of one for the future, at number 7, we have Barcelona winger Konrad de la Fuente. The 19-year-old de la Fuente has made his way up the Barcelona ranks through their academy system and has now found himself sort of in limbo between the first team and the second team. A player that's really too good for that second team level, but not quite good enough for Barcelona, and you can't really blame him. Barcelona is one of the best teams in the world, or at least have been in past. You know what I'm saying. Konrad de la Fuente has established himself as an elite youth prospect. He's shown himself to be wonderful on the ball at taking players on, a player that really makes things happen whenever he's out on the field. Unfortunately, he is yet to really break into that Barcelona lineup, and although we really want him to, we haven't seen any mention of him getting loaned out or sold to any other teams. Now, De La Fuente is a player that has an outside opportunity. You know, he could be in a Chris Richards situation where Richards was kind of stuck in Bayern Munich and not getting minutes, but then he gets that loan out to Hoffenheim and suddenly he's in that starting lineup. That exact same thing can happen to Konrad de la Fuente. It's just yet to happen yet. So because we have not seen much from him on the club level, just like Ulises Yanez, we have him at number 7, although he can rocket right up the charts. At number 8, we have the youngest player on my list, and that is 17-year-old New York Red Bulls midfielder Caden Clark. Now, Caden Clark is an interesting character. He developed at the Barca Academy, and then he was in MLS and struggled at Minnesota, but finally got his opportunity at New York, and whenever he did, he really made the most of it. He scored a few golazos and really got the fans excited as a player that could potentially maybe even make a 2022 World Cup roster if things kind of play out in his favor. Now, Clark has had very limited minutes in MLS. He only has 7 appearances for New York Red Bulls, but what he did with those 7 appearances was special. And that's why there's already talk about a potential move between Caden Clark and Leipzig whenever he turns 18. He's that kind of special player. At number 9, we have 19-year-old Atlanta United left back George Bello. Now, a lot of these players on this list have sort of come out of nowhere in the last few months, but not George Bello. George Bello is a player that we've known about for an awful long time. He made a ton of headlines whenever he signed a professional contract with Atlanta United at 15 years old, and since then, we've been waiting to see him explode onto the international scene. Now, it hasn't quite happened yet, but he's established himself as a quality left back for Atlanta United, and he's a player that people have circled as one poised to potentially make a big move this year. He's a player with a ton of potential, a ton of ability, and is just waiting to put it all together before he really explodes on the international scene. Now it's time for number 10, but before we do that, let's look at a few honorable mentions. First of all, remember I said at the beginning of this video that I'm only talking about players that have made their senior team debut, where there's a handful of players that have not made their senior team debut, but have all the potential in the world, players that people are very excited about. Players like Justin Shea, who just made a transfer from FC Dallas to Bayern Munich. At 17 years old, Justin Shea is a player that people are salivating to see what he can do. Another player that people are extremely excited about is the 16-year-old for Union Berlin, Malik Sanogo. Now, Sanogo, just like I think a lot of players on this list, is a dual international, and we don't know whether he's going to pick Germany or the United States or whatever he ends up. But as of right now, he is one of the hottest youth prospects in Union Berlin and really one of the hottest prospects in Germany. Look for him to be making a professional debut in the next few years. And then there's Brian Kayal, the 18-year-old Wolfsburg midfielder. Now, he did get an opportunity to play on a U.S. men's national team provisional roster for the last call-ups, but he ended up being let go before that team moved forward. So he has gotten some recent U.S. men's national team buzz, but this is a player that in the German youth systems is getting a ton of run. He's a player that may potentially get a promotion up to the Wolfsburg senior team soon. He's a player that I know I'm particularly excited about from all the compilation videos that I've watched. He's definitely a player to keep your eye on. Now back to number 10, and really I had 3 players that I found it very difficult to separate. One of them was Cole Bassett, one of them was Tanner Tessman, and the other is the player that I ultimately gave the number 10 spot to, the LA Galaxy attacking midfielder, Efrain Alvarez. Efra is an 18-year-old dual international who can either represent El Tri or the USMNT at international level. Efra has incredible technical ability. Looking at his highlight reel, he is an absolute technician. He can put the ball wherever he wants it on the field, and his close control is unbelievable. Now, Efra does have critics for the defensive side of his game, but if he can ever figure that out, his technical gifts are some of the best in the pool. All right, guys, this list was very, very hard to put together, so I know you're going to have a lot to say about it. Please let me know in the comment section. And by the way, I've been learning a lot of Spanish, so if you do speak Spanish, leave a comment in Spanish, and I'll try to reply to you in Spanish. That'd be great practice for me. If you are still watching this video at this point and you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, please hit that like button. That helps out so much. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report.